Hey everybody, Adam here, and back with a little more Legacy. Not quite the spice pile that I had originally anticipated playing tonight, but a wild one all the same. So this is Legacy Blue-Black Omnitel. So, the Omnitel deck list, kind of a known commodity at this rate. Cast Show and Tell, put in Omniscience, opponent dies to something. What the black brings us here is actually kind of interesting. So first off, we have access to Thoughtseize and Duress. So this is some additional disruption that's very, very cheap and very easy to cast. So this allows us to kind of muck with our opponent's interaction a little bit. More importantly, Profane Tutor. So this is a demonic tutor on layaway. So on turn 1 or turn 2, we can put a Profane Tutor on suspend. In a couple of turns, we can get the missing combo piece by casting Profane Tutor. And either opponent has to expect we'll get the combo and counter the tutor, or they have to plan to counter the tutor, and we've invested, or they have to counter the thing we get with the tutor. And at that point, potentially we've expended less resources, and we have the ability to just kind of stitch everything together. So, additionally here, we have access out of our sideboard to a few other cards. Leyline of the Void, now castable. So, it's a pretty solid graveyard hit. It can come down in turn 0. If we don't have it on turn 0 and our hand is totally reasonable, we can just cast this card. Also, welcome to the party, Massacre. What does Massacre do, friends? Massacre is a 4-mana black sorcery, 2 black. All creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. But wait, there's more. If your opponent controls a plains, and you control a swamp, you can cast Massacre without paying its mana cost. Nice Thalia you got there. Would be a shame if. So, Massacre is something we can bring in against decks like Death and Taxes or whatever to kind of hose some of their hate bears that would otherwise make our lives difficult. Finally, some pretty normal sideboard stuff. Hurkyl's Recall, Flusterstorm, Energy Flux, Brazen Borrower, Defense Grid, and Boseiju. All stuff that interacts through various matchups. Boseiju letting us kind of power through some of the other control decks. Flusterstorm lets us hose combo. Energy Flux and Hurkyl's Recall for the Urza Saga, garbage decks like 8-cast. Borrower is just a catch-all answer to some random permanent that we don't like. And then Defense Grid is another way to bully the counterspell decks and things of that nature. So, that is Blue-Black Omnitel. So this was a 5-0 list from MTGO user Neville Shoot. This seemed rad. Again, not really what I anticipated playing tonight. There were some other plans that got foiled by cards being absent from mana traders. RIP. So, without any further ado, you're right. I agree with you. Lightning Bolt does indeed kill Delver. You know what else kills Delver? Emrakul the Aeon's Torn. Hear me out. So we're going to go ahead and hop into this league and see what we can do. I appreciate everyone for joining tonight. Plenty of ways you could choose to spend your Tuesday evening, but I'm grateful that you've chosen to spend it with me. It's fine. I forgive you because I know in that format that you play, you don't get to play Emrakul. You don't realize. It's fine. It's fine. I understand. This is unkeepable. Easy Maul. We're gonna keep. Gonna bottom the Force of Will. Am I gonna bottom the Force of Will? I might bottom Lotus Petal, to be honest with you. Go bottom Lotus Petal. Chromux is fine. So this is likely Reality Chip Storm. Excuse me? I have no idea what's going on. I need an adult. Grim Monolith, not a card I was expecting. I want the Omni. The Thoughtseize is fine. What a wild ride. What's going on? Dees. I have no reason to show my opponent Ancient Tomb yet. Preordain. I don't know that I have 2 turns. God, this is going to be the greatest show and tell on planet Earth. Yep. Is this Echo the hard way? This feels like Echo the hard way. Oh, is Chip? No, this is just Echo. I'm sure? Simian Spirit Guide. I think the Burgie's fine. I think that's the Echo that right now that I have to worry about. Put back Omni. Put back Fetch Lands. Ponder. Fetch to clear. Brainstorm? Put back. Fetch. Tutor. Bottom. Bottom. Okay, okay. Okay. We're getting hit a couple of times with this Burgie, which is not great for us. We're gonna put in Omni. Yep. I'm not particularly interested in casting as Thoughtseize at the moment, just for life total reasons. This is untapped Monolith, sure. This leads me to believe that opponent's hand contains Echo. Yikes. Well, we've got one shot. Burning Wish. Counter it. Cool. Sure. Rate of Flame. Reckless Impulse. Yep. Sweet. Okay, things that we're interested in. These things involve the card Flusterstorm. I think Thoughtseize is pretty weak overall. And then... you could board in Leyline. Leyline is good against the Echo half of their deck. Maybe I'm just keeping Thoughtseize. Yeah, I think I just want this single... I guess... like, Flux is good. Let's just Flux them. Opponent showed me they're willing to play out a bunch of rocks and stuff like that. This seems okay, actually. Like, if we die on a turn 1, like, it's bad. When is playing first? Big shock. What's the deal here? Like, my instinct is to keep this. Opponent's already mulliganed once. I'm gonna keep it. If I die on turn 1, I die on turn 1. Yes. Three mana, Reckless Impulse. Down to 1 mana floating. Nice. Good. Griselbrand's great. All hail the Griseldad. Lotus Petal, sure. Bree's gonna resolve. Okay. Put back C, put back Delta. This is a lot of lands. I like that one. We're keeping this one. Chromox is fine. Lotus Petal is also fine. Relay isn't something I particularly care about. Sure. This is a really small relay. That Burning Wish is the only card that matters. Sure, this is fine. Opponent has 0 cards in hand. Preordain. I'm just going to be patient here, because inevitably they're going to lose to everything. I'm going to force the will that pitching Pierce. They have no mana floating with Bergie. So if I fluster with this on the stack, they can't actually pay. Because Relay doesn't let them exile these Spirit Guides. This random mana ability still on the stack. This is Cast Monkey. Is that where we are? Cast Monkey. Oh, buddy. Show me omniscience. Dece. Not gonna lie, that's Dece. I will play Griselbrand. This card can no longer be cast. Good night. Perfect. Just how we drew it up. Perfect. Just like we drew it up, friends. So, we're beating Bergie Storm. Now we just need to do that every other match this league. It'll be fine. Promise. Again, thank you everyone for joining me tonight. I appreciate you being here. Again, this is not what was originally planned for the evening, but this is where we are. Alright. Ooh, and we won the die roll. That seems cool. Into that life. Opponent has revealed Yorion. I'm gonna keep this, actually. I have a sneaking suspicion opponent is taxes, but, like, if we do this correctly, we clean this up before it matters. Ponder. Nope. Mom has resolved. It almost doesn't matter what opponent's casting here. We're probably just going to brainstorm. Right now, all we're looking for is the card show and tell. Put back this Fluster. Put back Underground Sea. Get Island. I will suspend a Profane Tutor. Opponent seems very confused by that whole notion. Stoneforge Mystic, sure. Cauldron complete. Shocking. Deece. Opponent's clock is violently anemic at this point. I am very good with opponent's clock being exceptionally anemic. We will let you beat for 2. You're supposed to wait till my draw step for the second one, friendo. Cast this. Put in get, show, and tell. Okay. Play City of Traders. Put in Omniscience. Cast Emrakul. Sick. Alright. Things we would like include Massacre. Cutting Duress. We need a couple of Borrowers. Can cut Spell Pierce and Flusterstorm. Run that. I will say I do kind of like the Black Disruption suite because we can keep Thoughtseize versus things like Taxes, but get rid of Duress, where this card is just pretty actively bad. And then, obviously, Flusterstorm. And then, in the matchups where our life total is in jeopardy, we can cut Thoughtseize. So it's a little flexible that way. And it's a little more flexible than just having, like, Force of Negation or Daze or something. Because Daze gets so bad in the later portions of the game because they can almost always pay for it. And as much as I like Spell Pierce in Show and Tell decks, Spell Pierce is still something that's pretty easily outclassed in this day and age. Yikes. I'm gonna keep it. That's the card we wanted. Sure, Saga's fine. Thalia resolves. Cool. Thalia of herself is a pretty anemic clock. Opponent just floats. They don't even make. What a wild ride. Opponent does indeed take Polluted Delta. Nice. Okay. I think I can still just be patient. Like, I'm not in any real hurry to do anything at all. Okay. Opponent also is missing land drops, which is pretty okay. I'll put back Lotus Petal, Ancient Tomb. Fetch. It's another show and tell. Okay. Opponent's plan is just to double port again. Yeah, that seems bad. Okay. Put one copy of Show and Tell back and this copy of Petal on top of it. So then we're going to play Ancient Tomb, cast Show and Tell. Okay. Cast with Omniscience. Cast with Omniscience. Cast with Omniscience. Yikes. Play the Lotus Petal and say go. Now they're paying for this Peacekeeper. Mana is now mostly irrelevant. Yori into hand. Sure, sure, sure. It's not what we're after. Hey, let's go. Profane Tutor actually is surprisingly good in this deck. I wasn't 100% sure how the Omni thing worked. But apparently it works the same way as I would have expected it to with As Foretold. And that's rad. Pretty into that life. So we just Profane Tutor off of Omni, find all our garbage, win target game? I'm in. Sounds good. I was curious why this was an Omnitel list without Cunning Wish until I figured out that it worked like that. So, or suspected it worked like that. Because normally you would Cunning Wish to go get all your stuff, but if you have Profane Tutor, you're just like Floop a Griselbrand into play, rip 7 cards. Okay, do we find Emrakul? No. Okay, do we find Profane Tutor? Yeah? Or we just cantrip our way into everything? Seems pretty okay. I don't hate that life. Definitely a game where opponent was punished for being on a Yorion build. Simply the density of cards in their deck that matters is lower. And like the Omniscience plan is just so very strong. Sick. On to round 3. Alright. Into round 3 with Blue-Black Omnitel. Currently 2-0. This seems like hot garbage. I feel like there are way too many lands in this hand. I like this much better. So let's see how this pans out. Opponent plays Scalding Tarn and passes. I accept. This feels like a kind of life I want to live. The fact that this is Duress does kind of signal that we're a combo deck. What a 5-card hand, friends. We're going to take Force of Will. I still know their entire hand. Goodbye to every ounce of pressure you once had. There's the volcanic island. Okay. Okay, so opponent is just like a Grixis deck. I'm not particularly worried about Snapcaster Mage, so I'm just going to let it be. Okay. That Snapcaster is not likely to stay there. So for anyone who follows my adventures in adult beverages on this channel, this is my first ever taste of Whistlepick. This is their Piggyback 6-year rye. For anybody nerdy enough to be watching, yes, I'm aware that this is an MGP product. I am particularly fond of MGP's juice. So we will see how this pans out. Okay. Dragon Reach Channeler, sure. Okay. They just kept the Snapcaster Mage. I understand. Then while the coast is clear, I'm going to cast Show and Tell and put in Omniscience. I'm going to venture a guess they can't really answer this once it's in play. Bolt me? Yes. Flipping land. Attack for 3, put me to 5. Bang. Cool. Alright, versus Delver. Don't think I want to force a will. Don't hate Defense Grid, don't hate Boseiju. I could also see cutting a Thought Seize for a Flusterstorm. Maybe I'll Duress for Fluster. Run like that. The reason to keep Thoughtseize is for exactly Murktide Regent. Thoughtseize will hit Murktide Regent if the rest of their hand doesn't matter. Duress will never hit Murktide Regent. And that could be the card that at least kind of allows them to play a game of Magic with me. It's possible Boseiju here is wrong. I will absolutely concede to the fact that Boseiju could be the incorrect call here, because they are potentially a Wasteland deck. It's also possible that they're not a like Delver style deck. This is very close. They are indeed a Delver deck. Okay. Profane Tutor. Underground Sea, Scalding Tarn. Don't shuffle. Another Delver. Ponder to set it up. Sure, sure. Delver's going to attack for 1 here. I'm going to play Scalding Tarn, fetch another basic island, play Defense Grid. I find it very difficult that they will be able to play a real game of Magic and ponder, sure. That's a lot of clock, not gonna lie to you. Cool. So with that Ponder, any of their counter spells are off the table. We draw, show, and tell. We win the game. The question is, what do we do if we don't draw, show, and tell? They have us on a 3-turn clock. If I cast Profane Tutor, we probably win? Because they attack for 6 and attack for 6. Puts us to 5. They would need Bolt Bolt. Okay. Clock for 6 with Double Delver. Another Ponder, sure. Now I definitely feel like we're in a good spot. Profane Tutor. Get Griselbrand. Cast with Omniscience. Hey, let's go! Alright, 3-0. 3-0-6-0, in fact. That feels pretty hot. Maybe Mr. Shoot here is onto something. This is, this feels pretty great. This has all of the show and tell nonsense that, like, is exceptionally powerful, but also, like, I guess I'm always a big fan of the Omniscience builds of show and tell. The decks that kind of lean a little more heavily on Omni just shutting the door once it's in play. And this feels like it very much does that. Profane Tutor lets you just, this is what I'm missing, I'm going to grab exactly that. There's no messing around, no weirdness. Not having a real sideboard is pretty powerful over having a wishboard. While I love a wishboard and a nice toolbox deck, just being able to board in your cards and just be like, okay, this is bad, this is good, and not having to worry about, like, the ratios of, okay, when do I leave one of these so that it's still a wish target, something like that. Alright. And we won the die roll. This is so very close. This is also great. Bottom this Thoughtseize. Oh, I took that wrong. I wanted the Force of Will in my hand. That was a mistake on my part. I'm taking the Flusterstorm here because I want it as a pitch card for Force of Will. Unfortunate. That is the luckiest wasteland. An opponent has no idea. Taiga. Oh, so opponent's lands. I don't care about that. Hey, okay. Alright, versus lands, cards I like include Leyline of the Void. Cards I'm not particularly a fan of include Spell Pierce, Flusterstorm, and I guess 2 Thoughtseize? They have very little that actually interacts with us. Because we're an Omniscience build, like, opponent has very little that actually does anything. Keep. Pre-game Leyline. That doesn't matter. I don't think that particularly matters. Cat. Opponent put a gross text box on our beautiful full art land. I'm upset. Cat. What's the opponent going to grab? Probably combo? Feels like a position where you go grab depths. Or stage, whatever piece you're missing. I feel like they're missing both, to be honest with you, because of that crop rotation. Ponder. Take Profane Tutor. Cast Petal. Suspend Profane Tutor. Does this Beseiju my Leyline? No. This is where I'm going to be patient. Because next turn I'm able to beat their Beseiju by getting another Omni. Ah, I got you. Opponents tutoring let me tutor more efficiently. Yep, you have a 1/1. I am kind of obligated into fetching here. I don't want to lose that. Probably name's Griselbrand. Yep, makes sense. Oh. Wow. Alright. Okay. Also, I goofed. I should have searched with Boseiju. I forgot it's not basic land. It has a basic land type. Reclaimer, sure. I believe I've died. Accordingly, how am I beating this garbage? Cut these things for borrower? Cut these things for borrower seems fine. That's where I actively wish I had a stifle. Just to be able to hose the Boseiju. I will keep here. This hand is so very close to doing everything. Opponent mauls to 6. We maul to 5. Show them double leyline. Exploration's fine. Drop, sure. Another exploration, sure. Stage. It's pretty gross. Reclaimer. So they're online. Big yikes. I think we're actually okay. That's so strange. Oh, no. Yeah, I boarded in Borrower. We're actually fine. This is so hilarious. We'll grab Borrower. Goodbye. Draws 3, discards 3. Sure. This actually feels like a pretty reasonable position for me. It's funny the opponent is now on the losing side of this battle when they made it 2020. This is great. Playing Beseiju as land for turn. Bold. Cast Force of Will. Rotate. Opponent just hucking all their lands into the abyss. Pyroblast? Reasonable. I get a 14, opponent goes to 11. I'm winning this race. That changes the math a little bit. Get Urza Saga? Have double Urza Saga? Is that our plan? You would need a lot more mana for that to particularly matter. They did indeed. They got another Saga. Both their Sagas tick. Okay, that's spooky. Okay. Oh, okay, this is another depths. Expo map. Sure. Needle. Name Griselbrand, sure. Crack Expo map. Get literally any land that produces mana. Get Trop, sure. Take 3, go to 12. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, it's not 10. If their hand doesn't also contain a removal spell for Borrower, they lose. Resolves. I will block 2020. Show and tell. Hey! All right. Well, it's not as clean, but that's 4-0 going into round 5. So, looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. Is this the one? Is this the trophy? I guess we stay tuned and find out. But it's looking all right for the home team. Again, I appreciate everyone for coming out tonight. We'll be back on Thursday evening with some Pauper for the week. In reference to all of the shenanigans about unable to obtain cards, that deck will come at a later point. I was unable to obtain 4 copies of Swift Reconfiguration that the deck list requires, and so I was unable to play the deck. Yes, the deck specifically requires Swift Reconfiguration. What a wild ride we're going to go on. Once that card is more readily available on Magic Online, I will be playing the deck. It should be a good time. So, stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, we have this sweet, sweet Omnidel action. And boy, it's been good. If you ever have something wild and crazy you would like to see on the stream, please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter, through Discord, which I need to update. It was brought to my attention last week that my Discord handle being shown like that does absolutely nothing for anybody, and I apologize. I will be sure to update that in the near future with the correct information after it. Yeah. Seems pretty okay. This Delta is going to fetch Island. We'll cast the Ponder. Likely pitching one of these Brainstorms to Force of Will. Opponent mold is 6. I will ponder. Force of Will on bottom. Emrakul land. Don't shuffle. Say go. Flooded Strand. Feels like a... Okay, this is a control deck of some nature. I know the next card is Force of Will. Brainstorm is fine. I think I'm just going to fire off this Brainstorm here. Yikes. We'll ponder here. Okay. Not gonna shuffle. I'm gonna play Underground Sea and pass. Yes, that was probably a turn to suspend Profane Tutor. Please don't. Get your garbage out of here. Okay. Okay. Opponent's pretty stuck. They haven't played another land in turns. They're not really doing anything productive. I feel like we're in an okay spot. Okay. Profane Tutor. The Spell Pierce is now Force Fodder. Bottom. Bottom. Ponder. Choose not to shuffle. Thought sees you. Opponent's probably very confused now. Goodbye, Force of Will. Okay. So this is where opponent plans on Kaya. Flooded Strand is gone. Kaya resolves. That's fine. That doesn't particularly matter. Go grab Show and Tell. What you got, opponent? I will Spell Pierce their Force of Will because they are unable to pay. Put in Omni. Hey, let's go. Okay. So, I like Flusterstorm. Opponent's deck contains both discard and counter magic. Shave Forces? Board in Grids? Maybe we're supposed to shave discard on the draw. I guess that's kind of here nor there. I think I would rather have grid than Force of Will, to be honest. Could discuss boarding in Beseiju, cut Petal in the last Force of Will. This one feels like the hardest one yet. The presence of both discard and counter magic and then being like a dedicated control deck feels pretty bad. And by the presence of Kaya, I'm going to just lump them into dedicated control deck because there's not really a whole lot of... Like, you're not going to play Kaya in a Delver deck. So that leads me to believe that opponent is slanted more mid-range or control. Opponent trying to sideboard to figure out how to beat blue-black Omni. Opponent drew their next card to see what was up. But, that was 2 minutes ago. They're still making sideboard decisions. I will probably consider Force of Will more highly on the play as just another thing to back up my garbage. That could change depending on what I see. This is Show and Tell and a Griselbrand. We need Omni. There's backup Show and Tell. That's pretty good. Brainstorm is fine. Right now my hand is pretty redundant. Thoughtseize, yep. Opponent probably takes Omni here. This Griselbrand alone doesn't beat them. Wild. Surgical? Moving on. Do I just replay game one? I think this is fine. This is a hand where I'm really tempted to just jam. And if opponent has it, like, we him to rock them and... Opponent is also kept with 7. We're gonna go for it. You got it? Opponent does not have it. Brainstorm. Sure. That is a surgical extraction to shuffle that ponder so I don't get the cards I kept up top. That's all that is. But yeah, opponent kept this hand on the back of... hoping that surgical does something. I'm going to put a backup Omni in play just in case, then we'll pass the turn. Stoneforge. Oh, okay. So you are Stoneforge. So you are a little more mid-range than I originally anticipated. That's fine. Cauldra, sure. Sure. Yeah. Opponent just ripping all of the cards out of my deck. Wait, didn't they surgical ponder earlier? They did, and they just left the one in my yard for no apparent reason. What a wild and crazy ride. This is fine. Okay. I have some time, but not much. I'm going to put the pedal into play. If opponent has Kaya, we're dead. I need Emrakul right here or a way to get to Emrakul. We're so good at this game. think this is opponent trying to figure out if they have an out to this. That's fine. I'll cast it and take another turn. We'll try again. And there it is, friends. The very first trophy of the channel. Blue-Black Omnitel. I never, in 1,000 years, would have guessed this is the one. Not possible. But there we are, everybody. There is the Trophy League with Blue-Black Omnitel. Let this shiny friend hang out in our collection. That'll be pretty cool. And, you know what? Well, let's go ahead and celebrate a little bit. Why don't we go ahead and open a chest here in celebration of our first 5-0. So here we go. So 5 play points, Dosing the Falling Leaf, and Bronze-Hide Lion. What a night. What a night. Okay. Well, everybody, thank you for joining. I really appreciate you being here. Again, I will be back on Thursday, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, playing some Pauper, and it should be a cool one. And in the meantime, again, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. To the first 5-0 league. Cheers, everyone. Have a good night.